There are moments in life when you know with absolute certainty that you've just made a monumental mistake. For me, that moment arrived on a rainy Tuesday in March, when I threw a glass of ice-cold water in the face of the richest and apparently most arrogant man in all of Belmont Springs, in front of approximately 200 horrified people. But let me go back 3 hours earlier, when I was just Magdalena Maggie Brennan, a perfectly ordinary pastry chef with a worrying soft spot for stray cats and dark chocolate. It all started when my best friend, Ivy Sato, showed up at the door of my bakery, Sweet Chaos, with that dangerous smile that usually meant trouble. "Maggie, I need you to do me a favor," she said, still breathless from running in the rain. "No," I replied automatically, without even looking up from the cream cheese frosting I was preparing. I'd known Ivy since we were 7. I knew how to recognize the "I'm going to ruin your life, but it'll be fun" tone. You didn't even hear what I was going to ask. I don't need to. I know that voice. It's the same one you used before convincing me to take that pole dancing class, which resulted in me hanging upside down for 40 minutes until the firefighters arrived. Ivy huffed, tossing her vintage purse onto the pink marble counter I'd personally restored. "That was 4 years ago. You need to get over it." "I still have emotional scars." Drama queen. "Look, it's simple. I need you to substitute for me at tonight's charity event. They'll be serving your cupcakes to 300 rich and bored people. It's free publicity." I finally looked at her, suspicious. "Why can't you go?" "Because—" Ivy bit her lip, avoiding my gaze. "Because Marcus got last-minute tickets to that Broadway musical I've been wanting to see for months, and the flight leaves in 3 hours." "Ivy, please," she clasped her hands in theatrical supplication. "You just need to show up, smile politely, and serve your wonderful cupcakes. Anyone with half a functioning neuron can do that. Even you." "Even me?" I repeated, indignant. "You know you have issues with people," Ivy gestured vaguely. "Rich people, specifically. Remember the Whitmore party? I didn't know I couldn't use the East Wing bathroom. That was their master bedroom, Maggie." I sighed, wiping my hands on my flour-stained apron. The truth was, I really did have a complicated relationship with high society events. I grew up in a trailer park on the outskirts of Belmont Springs, daughter of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to give me a decent life. I'd managed to build my bakery from scratch with lots of sweat and scary bank loans, but I still felt like an imposter around people who wore watches that cost more than my car. "Fine," I gave in, because I'm a terrible best friend who can't say no. "But you owe me one, big time." "You're the best." Ivy hugged me tightly. "Wear something nice. No aprons with kitten prints." My aprons are charming. They are. For a 5-year-old. 6 hours later, I was at the grand ballroom of the Ashford Hotel, wearing a simple black dress that Ivy had lent me, and that was tight in places that shouldn't be tight, balancing a tray of pistachio cupcakes with white chocolate ganache, and wondering how I'd agreed to this. The ballroom was everything I imagined hell would be. Expensive crystal chandeliers, superficial conversations about stocks and real estate, and people who seemed to have been bathed in gold and arrogance in equal proportions. "Are these the cupcakes?" A woman with a pearl necklace that probably cost more than my entire shop picked one up from the tray with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated. "Yes, ma'am." "Pistachio with white chocolate ganache and a pinch of sea salt," I replied with my best professional smile, which probably looked more like a grimace. She took a tiny bite, and her eyes widened. "My God, this is divine." She turned to a friend. "Priscilla, you have to try this." I felt a small, genuine smile form. This, yes. This I knew how to do. Not socialize, not wear heels without spraining an ankle, but make people sigh with pleasure at my creations. For the next hour, I circulated through the ballroom observing conversations about yachts. Who needs a yacht in Belmont Springs? We don't even have an ocean. Trips to islands I didn't even know existed, and the apparent scandal of someone having bought the same Birkin as someone else. I was almost beginning to relax when I heard him. The voice that would completely change the course of my evening, and without me knowing it at that moment, of my entire life. Frankly, this type of charity event is just theater. Rich people pretending they care about causes to feel better about their excessive consumerism. The voice was deep, drawling, and loaded with so much disdain it could be bottled and sold as liquid poison. I turned and saw him for the first time. Dashiell Hartwick. Even if you lived under a rock in Belmont Springs, you knew the Hartwicks. The family practically owned half the city, hotels, restaurants, a chain of private hospitals. And Dashiell was the prodigal son, the 33-year-old heir who had multiplied the family fortune by investing in technology and real estate. He was also, objectively, the most handsome man I'd ever seen in real life. Tall, probably over 6 feet, with dark brown hair perfectly tousled in that way that probably cost $200 at the salon. Storm gray eyes, chiseled jaw, and a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my shop's rent. He was surrounded by a small group of people laughing at something he'd said, that kind of forced laughter that sticks to powerful people. "Dash, you're terrible," an impeccable blonde said, touching his arm possessively. "Just honest, Scarlett," he replied, taking a sip of what looked like expensive whiskey. "If half the people here actually cared about saving the planet or helping needy children, they wouldn't have arrived in cars that consume more fuel than a small nation." I felt my jaw tighten. There was something about the casual ease with which he disdained everything, the lazy arrogance in his posture, that ignited something in me. "At least they're trying," I heard a timid voice say. It took me a second to realize it was mine. The entire group turned to me. Deadly silence. Dashiell Hartwick examined me from head to toe with those stormy eyes, and I immediately felt as if he could see the price tag on my borrowed dress, my tiny apartment above the bakery, every insecurity I carried. "Excuse me?" he said, and even those 2 words seemed soaked in condescension. My heart was pounding hard, but something stubborn in me, probably the part that had grown up defending myself from bullies in the schoolyard, refused to back down. I said, "At least they're trying." Doing something, even if imperfect, is better than standing around judging everyone. A muscle tensed in his perfect jaw. "How charming. And you are?" "Nobody important," I replied, my face burning. "Just someone who thinks criticizing people for trying to do good isn't as impressive as you seem to think." Scarlett gasped, literally gasped. "How dare you speak to Dashiell Hartwick like that? Do you know who he is?" "I do. A rich, bored man with an inflated opinion of himself." The words came out of my mouth before my brain could catch up and drag them back. What happened next was almost in slow motion. Dashiell took a step toward me, with that small, cruel smile that powerful men use when they're about to crush someone. "Let me guess. You're one of those types who think passion and moral indignation compensate for lack of actual achievement. I bet you have a whole fantasy about making a difference while you probably can barely pay your own bills." It was like a slap. Not physically, but in a worse way. Because he'd hit exactly where it hurt. My financial insecurities, my constant struggle to keep the bakery running, my perpetual feeling of not being good enough. And maybe it was the anger, or the humiliation, or the fact that I was wearing uncomfortable heels and had spent the entire day baking, and this impossible man thought he could judge me without knowing me. My hand found the nearest glass of water. "You know what I think?" I said, surprisingly calm. "I can hardly wait," he replied, sarcastic. "I think you need to cool your head." And I threw the water right in his face. The entire ballroom went silent. 200 people, maybe more, froze in absolute shock. Dashiell Hartwick stood there, water dripping down his perfect face, down his thousands of dollars suit, dripping onto the polished marble floor. For an infinite moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then his eyes met mine, and what I saw in them wasn't anger. It wasn't embarrassment, it was something much worse, interest. As if I'd just become the most fascinating thing in the room. "You," he began, his voice dangerously low. But I was already backing away, my brain finally catching up to my actions and screaming about the possible consequences. I need to go," I stammered, spinning on my treacherous heels. "Wait." I heard his voice behind me, but I didn't stop. I ran through the ballroom, aware of the shocked stares, the whispers already beginning. The fact that I'd just thrown water in the face of the most powerful man in Belmont Springs. Outside, the rain was still falling hard. I didn't care. I took off my heels and ran barefoot through the parking lot to my car, an old van I used for deliveries. As I drove home, shaking from adrenaline and cold, a single certainty settled in my chest. My life, as I knew it, was over. I just didn't know yet that in a twisted and completely unexpected way it was also just beginning. I spent the entire night convinced that Dashiell Hartwick would send lawyers, police, or possibly a hit squad to my apartment. Instead, at 6:47 a.m. I got something worse. 17 missed calls from Ivy, 43 texts in our group chat, and a notification that Sweet Chaos Bakery was trending on local Twitter. "Oh my God, Maggie, you're famous!" Ivy's text screamed at me in all caps. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and opened Twitter. The first video that appeared made my stomach drop to my feet. There I was, in glorious high definition, throwing water at Dashiell Hartwick's face. Someone had captured the exact moment the water hit him, his expression of absolute shock and my subsequent panicked escape. The caption read, "Mystery woman destroys arrogant billionaire at charity gala. Queen behavior." It had 847,000 views. 847,000 people had watched the worst moment of my life. I scrolled through the comments, my heart hammering. "She's my hero, OMG. Dashiell Hartwick is hot, even soaking wet. Anyone know who she is?" Finally, someone put that smug bastard in his place. Plot twist. They're gonna fall in love. I'm calling it now. I threw my phone across the bed like it had bitten me. This couldn't be happening. This was a nightmare. Any second now I'd wake up and my phone rang. Ivy's face filled the screen, grinning maniacally. "Don't answer, don't answer, don't answer," I whispered to myself. I answered. "Maggie Brennan, you absolute legend." Ivy's voice practically shattered my eardrum. "Ivy, this is bad. This is really, really bad." "Bad, bad? You're viral. The bakery Instagram has gained 3,000 followers overnight. People are calling you the water warrior and the billionaire slayer. People are going to find out who I am. Dashiell Hartwick is going to sue me for everything I own." Which admittedly isn't much, but still. Relax. I already called my lawyer cousin. You can't be sued for throwing water on someone. It's not assault, just aggressive hydration. "Aggressive hydration?" I repeated, hysterical laughter bubbling up. "Look, just lay low today, don't open the bakery. Let this blow over. I'll bring you coffee and those croissants you like. We'll figure this out." But laying low, as it turned out, wasn't an option. At 9:15 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Not the gentle knock of a friend or delivery person. This was an authoritative, "I own this building and possibly your soul" kind of knock. I opened the door a crack, still in my pajamas covered with cartoon cats. A woman stood there, impossibly elegant in a cream suit with sharp cheekbones and eyes that could cut glass. She held a leather portfolio and an expression that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. "Magdalena Brennan? Who's asking?" I said, trying to sound brave and probably failing spectacularly. "My name is Victoria Chen. I'm Mr. Hartwick's personal attorney and chief advisor." She pulled out a business card that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed to slam the door and flee through the fire escape. Instead, I heard myself say, "Sure, why not? My life is already ruined." Victoria entered my tiny apartment, her designer heels clicking on the worn hardwood floors. She looked around with the barely concealed disdain of someone used to penthouses and mansions. "Mr. Hartwick would like to speak with you," she said, getting straight to business. "To sue me. To discuss the events of last evening." Her lips twitched, almost like she was suppressing a smile. "He's waiting downstairs, in his car." "He's here?" I ran to the window. Sure enough, a sleek black Mercedes was parked outside, looking obscenely expensive among the regular cars on my street. "He's a very determined man, Miss Brennan. When Dashiell Hartwick wants something, he gets it." Something about her tone made my spine straighten. "Well, you can tell Mr. Hartwick that I'm not some thing he can just summon. If he wants to talk, he can come up here like a normal person. Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. I don't think you understand the gravity. I understand perfectly. I humiliated him in front of his rich friends, but he humiliated me first with his cruel assumptions. So we're even. Now if he wants an apology, he can ask for it himself, face to face. For a long moment, Victoria just stared at me. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. A real, genuine smile. You know what? I like you. She pulled out her phone and typed rapidly. You have 5 minutes to make yourself presentable. Wear something that says, I'm not intimidated by billionaires, even if you are. Wait, what? But she was already heading to the door. 4 minutes now, he hates waiting. I stood frozen for exactly 10 seconds before my survival instinct kicked in. I threw on jeans and a soft blue sweater, ran a brush through my unruly dark curls, and dabbed on some tinted lip balm. That was the best Dashiell Hartwick was getting at 9:30 in the morning. The knock came exactly 5 minutes later. This time I knew who it would be. I opened the door and there he was, Dashiell Hartwick in casual clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent, looking absolutely nothing like the water-drenched man from last night. His hair was perfectly styled, his gray eyes sharp and assessing. He wore dark jeans and a black cashmere sweater that hugged his frame in ways that should be illegal. Miss Brennan, he said, and his voice was just as deep and infuriating as I remembered. Mr. Hartwick, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Come to arrest me for assault with a deadly beverage? His lips twitched. May I come in? I stepped aside, acutely aware of my small apartment's flaws. The thrift store furniture, the pile of baking magazines, the cat calendar on the wall that was still on February. Dashiell entered and looked around with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then his eyes landed on something on my kitchen counter, and he walked toward it. My cupcakes. 6 perfect red velvet cupcakes I'd made at 5 a.m. because stress baking was my therapy. Did you make these? He asked. Yes. Why? He turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw something other than arrogance in his expression. Curiosity, maybe, or something more dangerous. Because, he said slowly, they're the same cupcakes from last night. The ones that every person at that gala couldn't stop raving about. The ones that, according to my mother who called me at midnight, were the only redeeming quality of the entire evening. I blinked. Your mother was there? Front row seat to my humiliation, yes. He moved closer and I fought the urge to step back. So here's my proposition, Magdalena. Maggie. Maggie. He said my name like he was testing how it felt. I don't want an apology. I want to hire you. Absolutely not. The words came out of my mouth before Dashiell could even finish explaining his offer. He stood in my tiny kitchen, looking like a Ralph Lauren ad that had wandered into a thrift store and raised one perfectly sculpted eyebrow. You haven't even heard the terms. Don't need to. Whatever you're proposing involves you, and you're clearly insane if you think I'd work for someone who insulted me in front of hundreds of people. I could say the same about working with someone who assaulted me with hydration, he countered smoothly. That's not... I stopped, frustrated. Why me? There are hundreds of pastry chefs in this city. Better ones. More experienced ones. Ones who haven't drenched you in public. Dashiell picked up one of my red velvet cupcakes, examining it like a jeweler appraising a diamond. May I? It's your funeral. He took a bite, and I watched his expression change. His eyes closed briefly, and when they opened, there was something almost vulnerable in them. Something real beneath all that calculated perfection. My grandmother, he said quietly, used to make red velvet cake every Sunday. She died when I was 12, and I've spent 20 years trying to find someone who could replicate it. He took another bite. This is better than hers. Don't tell her ghost I said that. I wasn't prepared for this version of him. The one who spoke about dead grandmothers and looked almost human. That still doesn't explain why you're here. My mother is turning 60 in 2 weeks, Dashiell said, setting down the cupcake. She's throwing a massive celebration, 200 guests, full catering, the works. The pastry chef we hired just quit because apparently working with my mother is emotionally traumatic. Her words, not mine. Can't imagine why, I muttered. His lips twitched with what might have been amusement. The point is, we need someone exceptional. Someone who can create desserts that will make my mother's society friends weep with joy. And after last night, you're all anyone can talk about. You mean the viral video of me humiliating you? I mean the mysterious pastry chef who made the best cupcakes anyone's ever tasted and had the backbone to stand up to me. He leaned against my counter, and I tried not to notice how the movement made his sweater pull across his shoulders. Bad publicity is still publicity, Maggie. Right now you're famous. In 2 weeks you'll be forgotten, unless you do something memorable. Like cater a party for the Hartwick family. Exactly. I'll pay you $50,000. I actually choked on air. I'm sorry, what? 50,000. Half up front, half upon successful completion. That should cover your bakery's operating costs for at least 6 months, based on the financial records Victoria pulled. You investigated me? Outrage warred with the desperate part of my brain already calculating how many overdue bills that money would pay. Due diligence. I don't hire people blindly. He crossed his arms. You need the money. I need your talent. This is business. Business with the man I publicly humiliated. Consider it reparations. Something flickered in his eyes. Look, I was an arrogant ass last night. You were right to call me out. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who only tell me what I want to hear. You're refreshing. Refreshing, I repeated flatly. Like a glass of water to the face? Exactly like that. And then Dashiell Hartwick did something that completely disarmed me. He smiled. Not the cruel, calculating smile from last night. A real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made him look 10 years younger and infinitely more dangerous to my emotional equilibrium. I was in such trouble. One event, I heard myself say. I cater your mother's party, take your obscene amount of money, and then we never see each other again. Deal. He extended his hand. I looked at it suspiciously. No contracts? No fine print? Victoria will email you the official paperwork. But between us? He kept his hand extended. I want your word. Old-fashioned, I know, but my grandmother always said a handshake meant something. Against every instinct of self-preservation, I took his hand. His grip was warm, firm, and sent an entirely inappropriate jolt of electricity up my arm. You have a deal, Mr. Hartwick. Dash, he corrected. If we're going to work together, you should probably call me Dash. Fine. Dash. His name felt strange on my tongue, too intimate. But I have conditions. Of course you do. He still hadn't let go of my hand. I pulled away, ignoring the lingering warmth. 1. I have complete creative control over the desserts. 2. You don't interfere with my process. 3. If your mother is as emotionally traumatic as advertised, you run interference. Done, and I'll do my best. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. We'll need to coordinate details. Can't Victoria handle that? Victoria handles my business affairs. This is... He paused, something unreadable crossing his face. This is personal. Family matters. I prefer to manage those myself. There was a story there, buried under all that expensive cologne and perfectly styled hair. A crack in the armor. But before I could analyze it, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Dash. Dinner tomorrow at 7 to discuss the menu. I'll pick you up. I looked up at him, incredulous. You just invited yourself to take me to dinner? It's a business meeting. We need to discuss my mother's preferences, dietary restrictions, theme specifications. He headed toward the door, then paused. Wear something nice. The restaurant has a dress code. I don't... But he was already leaving, that infuriating, almost smile playing on his lips. Oh, and Maggie? He turned back one last time. For what it's worth, you were right last night. I was being insufferable. Consider the water a wake-up call. Then he was gone, leaving me standing in my apartment holding a contract offer that would save my business, and wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. Ivy called 30 seconds later. "Tell me everything," she demanded. I think," I said slowly, walking to the window and watching Dash's Mercedes pull away. "I just made either the best or worst decision of my life." "Oh my God, you're going to fall in love with him, aren't you?" "Absolutely not," I said, far too quickly. Ivy's laughter echoed through the phone. "You're so screwed, Mags, so wonderfully, deliciously screwed." She wasn't wrong. Ivy practically moved into my apartment for the next 24 hours, treating my dinner with Dash like it was the Met Gala. She brought 7 dresses, 3 pairs of shoes, and enough makeup to paint a small army. "It's a business meeting," I protested for the 15th time as she held up a red dress that had more cutouts than fabric. "Business meetings don't require a man to pick you up at your apartment," Ivy countered, tossing the dress aside. "That's date behavior disguised as professionalism. He's just being efficient. He's being interested." She pulled out a deep emerald dress, simple but elegant. "This one. It matches your eyes and says, 'I'm sophisticated, but I could still throw water on you if provoked.'" I hated that she was right. The dress was perfect. At 6:55 p.m. I was pacing my living room, second-guessing everything. The dress, the heels Ivy had forced me into, the fact that I'd agreed to this at all. My phone buzzed. "I'm downstairs." My stomach did a complicated flip that had nothing to do with the protein bar I'd nervously eaten for lunch. Dash was leaning against his Mercedes, and the sight of him should be illegal. Dark suit, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone in a way that seemed calculated to destroy my composure. When he saw me, something shifted in his expression, his eyes darkening, his posture straightening. "You look," he started, then stopped. "Presentable enough for your fancy restaurant?" I supplied, defensive. "Stunning," he finished quietly. "You look stunning." Oh no. This was bad. This was very bad. He opened the car door for me and I caught a whiff of his cologne, something woodsy and expensive that made my traitorous brain imagine leaning closer. The restaurant, Lumiere, was exactly the kind of place that made me nervous. Crystal chandeliers, hushed conversations, and waiters who probably earned more than me. The host greeted Dash by name and led us to a private corner booth. "You come here often?" I asked, sliding into the booth. "Only when I need to impress someone." He sat across from me, close enough in the intimate space that our knees almost touched. "Or when I need privacy." "Which is this?" "Both." He handed me a menu that had no prices, which was never a good sign. "Order whatever you want, it's all excellent." I scanned the menu, my French barely good enough to decipher canard and bouffe. "I'll have whatever you're having," I said, closing the menu before I could embarrass myself by mispronouncing something. Dash's lips curved. "Trust me then?" "With dinner, not with anything important." But I was smiling despite myself. He ordered in perfect French and I tried not to find that attractive. Failed, but tried. "So," I said, pulling out a small notebook. "Your mother's party. Tell me about her." "Cassandra Hartwick is—" Dash paused, choosing words carefully. "Exacting. She has opinions about everything, none of them quiet. She's terrifying, brilliant, and the only person who's never been afraid to tell me when I'm being an ass. I like her already." "You would." He leaned back. "She loves classic flavors but hates anything predictable. She's allergic to almonds. She once made a chef cry because he used salted butter instead of unsalted. Jesus, maybe I should throw water on her too." Dash laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his entire face. "Please don't, I can only handle one viral scandal per month." Our appetizers arrived, and I realized I was actually enjoying this. The conversation flowed easily, shifting from his mother's preferences to stories about kitchen disasters, to his admission that he once tried to bake and set off 3 smoke alarms. "You? The perfect Dashiell Hartwick failed at something?" I teased. "Spectacularly. My assistant still won't let me near the office kitchen." He took a sip of wine. "Your turn. What made you become a pastry chef?" The question caught me off guard. "My mom," I said softly. She worked 3 jobs and we didn't have much, but every birthday, no matter how broke we were, she'd make me a cake from scratch. Nothing fancy, but made with so much love that it tasted like magic. I traced the rim of my water glass. When she got sick, baking was how I felt close to her. After she died, it became my way of sharing that same feeling with other people. Dash's expression had gone soft, unguarded. How old were you? 19. Cancer took her fast. I forced brightness into my voice, but she got to see me open Sweet Chaos 6 months before. She was so proud, said I was giving people joy, one cupcake at a time. You are, Dash said, and the sincerity in his voice made my throat tight. Last night, despite the water incident, you made people happy. That matters. We stared at each other across the table, something unnamed stretching between us like a wire pulled taut. The spell broke when his phone rang. He glanced at it and grimaced. I need to take this. My mother. He stepped away and I watched him through the window, his expression shifting to careful neutrality as he talked. When he returned, the warmth had been replaced by tension. Problem? I asked. She wants to meet you, tomorrow, for tea at the estate. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its perfection. I told her it was too soon, but Cassandra Hartwick doesn't hear no very well. It's fine. I should meet her anyway if I'm catering her party. Maggie. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. The touch sent heat racing up my arm. My mother is going to interrogate you. She's going to dig into your background, your business, your intentions. She's protective of family events, and after the viral video, she'll want to assess if you're a liability. I was going to say trustworthy, but yes. His thumb traced an absent pattern on my hand. I can run interference, but she's formidable. So am I said, lifting my chin. I've handled plenty of difficult clients. I can handle one billionaire's mother. Dash's expression was equal parts admiration and concern. You have no idea what you're walking into. Then I guess it's good I have you as a guide. I squeezed his hand before pulling away, already missing the warmth. Besides, how bad can tea with your mother possibly be? The look on Dash's face suggested I'd just asked a very naive question. As he drove me home later, full of incredible food and dangerous feelings, I couldn't shake the sense that tomorrow's tea would change everything. I just didn't know if it would be a disaster or a beginning. Knowing my luck? Probably both. The Hartwick estate wasn't a house. It was a declaration of wealth so obscene it should come with a warning label. Stone columns, manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff of 20, and a driveway so long I could have trained for a marathon on it. Dash picked me up at 2 o'clock sharp, looking annoyingly perfect in casual slacks and a navy sweater. Last chance to run, he said as we pulled through the iron gates. And miss meeting the woman who terrorizes professional chefs? Never. I smoothed down my cream blouse for the 15th time. Besides, I brought backup. I held up a small bakery box. Inside were 6 mini lemon lavender tarts I'd made at 5 a.m. because stress baking was apparently my superpower. Bribing my mother with desserts, Dash said, something like admiration in his voice. Strategic. I prefer to call it diplomatic pastry relations. He laughed, then reached over and squeezed my hand. You're going to be fine, probably, maybe. I'll definitely call an ambulance if needed. So reassuring. Cassandra Hartwick was waiting in a garden room that probably cost more than my entire building. She was 60 years of elegant intimidation, silver hair and a perfect chignon, pearls that screamed old money, and eyes the same stormy gray as her son's but somehow sharper, more assessing. Mother, Dash said, kissing her cheek. This is Magdalena Brennan. Maggie, please. I extended my hand, refusing to be intimidated by the way she examined me like a jeweler spotting a fake diamond. The girl who threw water on my son. Her handshake was firm, brief. Tea, Dashel, leave us. Mother, go. I want to speak with Miss Brennan privately. Dash shot me an apologetic look before disappearing. Traitor. Cassandra poured tea with practiced precision, and I noticed her hands, elegant but marked with age spots, a slight tremor carefully controlled. "My son tells me you're talented," she said, not looking at me. "I make very good cupcakes. I ate 7 of them at the gala. Before you created that spectacle." She finally met my eyes. They were exceptional. Almost as exceptional as your audacity. I couldn't tell if that was a compliment or a threat. "Your son insulted me." I responded poorly. "I'm not proud of it, but I don't regret defending myself." Something flickered in her expression. Approval? "Most people are terrified of Dashiell. His money, his influence. You treated him like an equal. Because that's what he is. Rich doesn't mean better." "No," Cassandra said softly. "It doesn't, though many forget that." She sipped her tea. "Tell me, Maggie, why did you agree to cater my party? The money?" Honesty seemed like the only option with this woman. "Yes, my bakery is struggling. $50,000 means I can keep my dream alive for another year. And my son? What do you think of him?" The question was a landmine. "I think he's more complicated than he pretends to be. Arrogant, yes. But also surprisingly kind when he drops the armor." Cassandra's lips curved into something almost like a smile. "You see him clearly. That's rare." She set down her teacup. "I'm dying, Miss Brennan." The words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe 8. She said it matter-of-factly, but I saw the grief underneath. "This party isn't just a birthday celebration. It's a goodbye. I want it to be perfect. I want my son to have one last beautiful memory before everything changes." My throat constricted. "Mrs. Hartwick, Dashiell doesn't know," she continued. "He suspects I'm ill, but not how serious. I'll tell him after the party. I refuse to ruin this with his hovering and medical interventions that will only delay the inevitable." Her eyes locked on mine, fierce. "Can I trust you with this secret?" "Yes," I whispered, my heart breaking for this formidable woman and the son who didn't know he was about to lose her. "Good." She pulled out a folder. "These are my preferences. I want elegance, but also joy. I want people to taste love in every bite. Can you do that?" I thought of my mother, of baking through grief, of channeling love into flour and sugar. "Yes, I can do that." We spent the next hour discussing flavors and presentations. Cassandra was exacting but brilliant, with ideas that challenged and excited me. I showed her sketches, suggested combinations, and watched her face light up with genuine enthusiasm. "These mini lemon lavender tarts," she said, finishing her second one. "Include them. They taste like my grandmother's garden in Provence." When Dash returned, he found us laughing over a story about a disastrous wedding cake from the 1980s. "You're both still alive," he said, looking between us with cautious relief. "That's promising." "Your Maggie is delightful," Cassandra said, and I tried not to fixate on the word your. "Hire her immediately, full creative control." "Already done." Dash's eyes met mine, warm and questioning. "Everything okay?" I smiled, carrying the weight of Cassandra's secret. "Perfect. Your mother and I understand each other." As Dash drove me home, he kept glancing over, curiosity written across his face. "What did she say to you?" "That I have good taste in tea." I watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. "And that she trusts me to make her party special." "That's high praise. My mother doesn't trust easily." He pulled up to my building but didn't unlock the doors. "Maggie, I need to tell you something." My pulse quickened. "Okay." This started as a business arrangement, a solution to a problem. He turned to face me fully. But somewhere between the water throwing and the cupcakes and tonight, it became something else for me. "Dash, I'm not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know. You're not just the pastry chef I hired. You're becoming someone I look forward to seeing. Someone who makes me want to be less of an arrogant ass." My heart hammered against my ribs. That's a low bar. but an honest one. He smiled, soft and vulnerable. No pressure, just truth. I should have been smart, should have maintained professional distance, should have remembered that fairy tales don't happen to girls from trailer parks. Instead, I leaned over and kissed his cheek, lingering just long enough to feel his sharp intake of breath. "Thank you for the honesty," I whispered, then fled into my building before I could do something really stupid, like fall completely in love with him. Too late, my heart whispered. Way too late. The next week was a beautiful, exhausting blur of flour, sugar, and Dashiell Hartwick showing up at my bakery with increasingly transparent excuses. "Just checking on progress," he'd say, then spend 2 hours taste-testing samples and telling me stories about his childhood. "Ensuring quality control," he'd claim, then help me wash dishes while we debated whether Jane Austen or the Brontes wrote better romance. "My mother asked me to," he'd start, then give up pretending entirely and just kiss my flour-dusted forehead before leaving. We were dancing around something inevitable, and we both knew it. Ivy watched it all with the smug satisfaction of someone who'd predicted this disaster from day one. "You're in love with him," she declared on day 8, watching me pipe frosting with obsessive precision. "I'm professionally committed to his mother's party. You made him a grilled cheese yesterday. At midnight. Because he texted that he was hungry. That's just being neighborly. He lives in a mansion across town, Maggie." I had no defense for that. The party was 3 days away when everything started unraveling. I was in the bakery at 6 a.m. working on the showpiece, a 3-tiered lavender cake with hand-painted edible flowers, when my phone exploded with notifications. The first was from an unknown number. Check TrendSpot News. My stomach dropped. The headline read, "Billionaire's New Girlfriend, Gold Digger or True Love." Below it was a photo of Dash and me outside Lumiere, his hand on my back, both of us smiling. We looked together, like a couple. The article was poison disguised as journalism. It detailed my background, the trailer park, my mother's death, my struggling bakery, and painted me as a calculating woman using the viral video to trap a wealthy man. "Sources close to the family suggest Hartwick's dying mother disapproves of the relationship, seeing Brennan as an opportunist." I read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper. My phone rang. "Dash. Don't read it," were his first words. "Too late. Maggie, it's garbage. Tabloid nonsense. No one believes. Everyone believes it, Dash. That's what tabloids do." I was pacing now, panic rising. This makes me look like exactly what people already think I am. Some poor girl using you for money. You're not. Your mother's party is in 3 days. What if people think I'm catering it to get closer to you? What if they think she only hired me because you... I couldn't finish. "Because we're what, Maggie?" His voice was quiet, intense. "Say it. This was supposed to be business." Was. Past tense. I heard movement, a car door. "I'm coming over." "No, I need to think," but he'd already hung up. He arrived 17 minutes later, still in gym clothes, hair disheveled, looking more real than I'd ever seen him. He walked straight into my kitchen, cupped my face in his hands, and kissed me. Not gentle, not tentative. A kiss that tasted like desperation and certainty and everything I'd been trying not to feel. When we broke apart, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. "I don't care what they write. I don't care what anyone thinks." His voice was rough. "You're not a gold digger. You're the woman who threw water in my face because I was being an insufferable ass. The woman who makes my mother laugh for the first time in months. The woman I can't stop thinking about even when I should be focused on quarterly reports. Dash. I'm falling for you, Maggie. Probably already fell. And yes, the timing is terrible and complicated, but I'm tired of pretending this is just business." I wanted to fall into those words, into him. But Cassandra's secret burned in my chest. "Your mother is sick," I whispered. "I know, I've known for weeks." His jaw tightened. She won't tell me how serious, but I see it. The way she tires easily. The pill she thinks I don't notice. This party, it's important, it might be. He couldn't say it. One of the last. I finished softly. He nodded, grief stark in his eyes. Which is why it needs to be perfect. Why I need you. Just for the party? I asked, hard in my throat. For everything. He kissed me again, softer this time. If you'll risk the tabloids and the judgment and my mother's inevitable interrogation about our intentions. I thought about Cassandra's fierce desire to see her son happy. About the way Dash looked at me like I was something precious. About how love was always a risk, but some risks were worth taking. Okay, I breathed against his lips. Okay. We spent the rest of the morning there stealing kisses between batches of macarons, and for a few hours the world felt right. Then my phone rang again. Cassandra. Have you seen the article? Her voice was steel. Yes, Mrs. Hartwick, I can explain. Good. Use it. I heard the smile in her voice. Dashiell has been alone too long, married to his work. If a tabloid scandal is what it takes to push you two together, then I consider it a gift. You're not angry? My dear girl, I'm dying. I don't have time for anger. She coughed, and I heard the weakness she tried to hide. I have time for joy, and you make my son joyful. That's all a mother can ask. Tears burned my eyes. The party will be perfect, I promise. I know it will. Now go kiss my son again, he looks like he needs it. She hung up, and I turned to find Dash watching me, eyebrow raised. My mother approves of us? Enthusiastically. Of course she does. She's been scheming since you walked into her garden room. He pulled me close. Fair warning, Cassandra Hartwick always gets what she wants. And what does she want? You. For me. Forever, probably. He tucked a curl behind my ear. Think you can handle that? I thought about the impossible, beautiful mess we'd created. About water thrown in anger becoming the first splash in an ocean of feeling. I threw water in your face and somehow ended up here. I can handle anything. That's my girl, he murmured, and kissed me like he meant to prove it. 2 days until the party. 2 days until we'd have to face everyone together, tabloids and society and all. But wrapped in his arms, tasting sugar and hope and tomorrow, I couldn't find it in myself to be afraid. The morning of Cassandra's party, I woke up at 4 a.m. to find Dash asleep in a chair beside my bed, still in yesterday's clothes. He'd stayed after helping me prep until midnight, refusing to leave when I was running on anxiety and coffee fumes. I traced his jawline softly and his eyes fluttered open, storm gray warming to summer sky when he saw me. Morning, beautiful, he murmured, voice rough with sleep. You have a mansion with probably 15 beds. Why are you cramped in my terrible chair? Because you're here. He pulled me down for a kiss that tasted like promises. Ready to dazzle 200 judgmental rich people? Absolutely terrified. Perfect. That makes 2 of us. By noon, the Hartwick estate had transformed into something from a fairy tale. White flowers everywhere, string lights waiting for evening, and my dessert station positioned like a shrine to sugar and dreams. The 3-tiered lavender cake stood as the centerpiece, surrounded by mini lemon tarts, chocolate ganache cups, rose macarons, and tiny pavlovas that looked like edible clouds. 2 months of mortgage payments sat on those tables, crystallized into art. Cassandra appeared at 2 p.m., stunning in champagne silk, though I noticed how carefully she moved, how Dash hovered without seeming to. It's magnificent, she breathed, touching one of the hand-painted flowers on the cake. You've given me magic, Maggie. You deserve magic, I said, squeezing her hand. She held on longer than necessary, her grip surprisingly strong. Whatever happens tonight, know that you've given me something precious. You've given me hope for Dashiell's future. For happiness after I'm... Don't, I whispered, tears threatening. Live fully, darling girl. Both of you. Promise me. I promise. Guests arrived at 6, and I retreated to my station, watching Belmont Springs elite fill the garden. I spotted Scarlett, the woman from the gala, shooting daggers at me, saw people whispering, phones discreetly angled for photos. Then Dash found me, devastating in a midnight blue suit. "Dance with me," he said, extending his hand. "I'm working. One dance. Let them talk. Let them stare. I want the world to know you're mine." He led me to the dance floor they'd erected on the lawn, pulling me close as a string quartet played something timeless and romantic. Around us, conversations stopped. Cameras clicked. "They're all watching." I murmured against his chest. "Good. Let them see how gone I am for the woman who threw water in my face and changed my entire life." He spun me gently. "Maggie Brennan, you're the best catastrophe that ever happened to me." I laughed, dizzy with love and fear and joy. "That's the worst romantic declaration I've ever heard." "Then let me try again." He stopped dancing, right there in the center of everything, and cupped my face. "I love you. Imperfectly. Inconveniently. Completely. I love your terrible baking puns and your fierce loyalty. And the way you see people. Really see them. Including me." The garden had gone silent. 200 people holding their breath. "Dash, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know, here, now, in front of everyone who called you a gold digger, that you're the most genuine thing in my carefully constructed life." I kissed him. Right there, in front of God and society and probably 17 camera phones. Kissed him like he was oxygen and I was drowning. When we broke apart, someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire garden erupted in applause. "Well," I said breathlessly, "I guess we're official. Spectacularly official." He grinned, that real smile that made him look young and free. My mother is probably recording this for posterity. We returned to the party hand in hand, and something had shifted. People approached me differently, curious rather than contemptuous, asking about my bakery, complimenting the desserts. At 8, they cut the cake. Cassandra made a speech about family and love and treasuring every moment. Her voice wavered only once when she looked at Dash. "My greatest achievement," she said, "isn't the businesses or the charity work. It's raising a man capable of real love, and watching him find someone worthy of it." Dash's hand tightened on mine. At 9, I noticed Cassandra sitting alone, looking tired. I brought her a plate of lemon tarts. "The party is perfect," she said. "You're perfect for him. Mrs. Hartwick, Cassandra, please." She took my hand. "I need to tell Dashel, soon. About everything. He suspects, but he doesn't know." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "Will you be there? When I do? He'll need you." "Of course. Whenever you're ready. Tomorrow. I'll tell him tomorrow." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Maggie, for giving him love before he has to face loss." At midnight, the last guest departed. Dash and I collapsed on a garden bench, exhausted and sugar high and happy. "We did it," I said. "You did it. This was all you." He kissed my temple. "Move in with me." I turned so fast I nearly fell off the bench. "What?" "Move in. Not because of money or convenience, because I want to wake up with you every morning and argue about whether Jane Austen or the Brontes are better. Austen, obviously, and because life's too short to waste time apart when we could be together." His expression turned serious. "My mother's sicker than she's letting on. I don't know how much time she has, but I know I don't want to waste a single day of whatever comes next without you." He knew. Maybe not the specifics, but he knew enough. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes to all of it." He kissed me under the fairy lights and fading flowers, and I thought about water thrown in anger becoming water under the bridge, becoming an ocean of possibility. Later, as we cleaned up and Dash stole macarons he definitely didn't need, his phone rang. Victoria, his assistant. Her voice came through panicked. "Dashel, it's your mother. She collapsed. The ambulance is on its way." Everything stopped. The happiness, the future, The beautiful delusion that we had time. Dash went white. I'm coming. We ran to his car, my beautiful dress snagging on branches. He drove like a man possessed, jaw clenched, breathing harsh. She's going to be fine, I said, knowing it was probably a lie. She's dying. His voice broke. She's been dying and I knew, but I pretended I had more time. I grabbed his hand. Then we'll face it together, whatever comes. At the hospital, Victoria met us with red eyes. She's stable, weak, but asking for you both. Cassandra looked small in the hospital bed, stripped of her armor of silk and pearls. But her eyes were still fierce when we entered. Well, she said weakly, I suppose this rather forces the conversation. And there in that sterile room, she finally told him everything. Cassandra's words fell like stones into still water, each one sending ripples through Dash's carefully constructed world. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe less. I've known since January. Dash stood frozen by her bedside, his hand gripping the rail so hard his knuckles went white. January. That was 9 months ago. I didn't want your pity, or your desperate attempts to fix the unfixable. Cassandra's voice was weak, but steady. I wanted to live, Dashel. Really live. Not spend my final months in hospitals fighting a battle I can't win. You should have told me. His voice cracked. I'm your son. Which is exactly why I couldn't. She reached for his hand. You would have stopped living to watch me die. Instead, you fell in love. You smiled again. You became the man I always knew you could be. Dash looked at me, tears streaming down his face, and I saw the boy who'd lost his grandmother, now losing his mother. I moved to his side, wrapping my arms around him as he shattered. I can't lose you, he whispered against Cassandra's hand. Oh, my darling boy. You'll never lose me. I'm in every business decision you agonize over, every terrible joke you tell, every moment of unexpected kindness. She smiled through her own tears. And now, I'm in every cupcake Maggie makes, because she learned to bake from love and loss, just as you're learning to live from it. We stayed there until dawn, talking and crying and sometimes laughing at memories. Cassandra made Dash promise to live fully, to marry me if I'd have him. His ears turned red at that. To not let grief make him cold again. The water she threw at you, Cassandra said as the sun rose. That was life waking you up. Don't go back to sleep. She died 3 weeks later, surrounded by family, with Dash holding one hand and me holding the other. Her last words were, "What an adventure." The funeral was enormous, hundreds of people whose lives she'd touched. Dash delivered the eulogy with steady voice and wet eyes, talking about her fierceness, her love, her insistence that life was meant to be grabbed with both hands. Afterward, in the quiet of our apartment, he finally broke down completely. I held him through it. This man who'd been so arrogant and was now so beautifully, devastatingly human. She knew, he said against my shoulder. All along she was orchestrating everything. The party, hiring you, pushing us together. It was her final gift. She loved you so much. I know. He pulled back, cupping my face. She loved you too. Left you something in her will. Victoria has it. Dash, I don't need... It's not money. It's better. He managed a small smile. You'll see. Victoria delivered it the next day. Cassandra's handwritten recipe book, decades old, filled with notes and splatters and love. The inscription read, "For Maggie, who knows that the best recipes are made with courage, chaos, and copious amounts of butter. Bake joy into the world, darling girl, and take care of my son." I sobbed into Dash's chest, and he held me like I'd held him, both of us grieving and healing in equal measure. 1 year later, you're burning the butter. I'm not burning the... Okay, I'm burning the butter. I rescued the pan from Dash's enthusiastic but incompetent attempt at making Cassandra's famous brown butter cookies. He looked so adorably frustrated that I kissed his flour-dusted nose. Stick to eating them, Mr. Hartwick. That's Mr. Hartwick Brennan to you, Mrs. Hartwick Brennan. He pulled me close, and I still got butterflies seeing my wedding ring, simple gold, engraved with Best Catastrophe. We'd married 6 months after Cassandra's death, small and intimate in the garden where we danced. Ivy was my maid of honor and cried through the entire ceremony. Victoria officiated and only teared up twice. Sweet Chaos had expanded to 3 locations, funded by Cassandra's final investment in joy, a trust she'd established for my business. Each shop featured a photo of her and a plaque, in memory of Cassandra Hartwick, who believed in love, courage, and exceptional desserts. Dash had changed too. Still driven, still successful, but softer around the edges. He volunteered at the Children's Hospital, funded scholarships for culinary students, and only worked 60 hours a week instead of 90. And every Sunday, we made her recipes together, filling our home with the scent of butter and memory and love. So, Dash said, pulling me from my thoughts, I have news. Good news, or we're about to be viral again news. Good news. Great news. He placed his hand on my still flat stomach. Really, really great news. I stared at him, then at his hand, then back at him. You didn't. I found the test in the bathroom trash. You were going to tell me, right? Tonight, I had a whole plan with cupcakes that said you're going to be a dad and, wait, you're happy? Happy? He laughed, lifting me off my feet and spinning us both. Maggie, I'm terrified and thrilled and so stupidly in love with you that I can't see straight. That's the butter smoke. That's you. It's always been you. He set me down gently. Mom would have been so excited. She knows, I said, touching the recipe book on the counter. Somehow she knows. That night, lying in bed with Dash's hand protective over our secret, I thought about the chain of impossible events that led here. Water thrown in anger, a viral video, a dying woman's final gift, love found in the chaos of grief. Dash? What are we going to tell our kid about how we met? He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest into mine. The truth, that their mother assaulted me with aggressive hydration, I fell hopelessly in love, and their grandmother orchestrated the whole thing from beyond the grave. They're going to think we're insane. We are insane. Perfectly, wonderfully insane. He kissed me softly, and I wouldn't change a single moment. Neither would I. Outside, rain began to fall, gentle, cleansing, full of promise. I smiled into the darkness, thinking of water and new beginnings and beautiful catastrophes. Thank you, Cassandra, I whispered. And somewhere, I swear, I heard her laugh. The end.